Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason. Welcome to Wishwell Farms. We're starting today off with keeping all these plants watered during this heat wave we're experiencing in the Midwest. It has been low to mid 90s for the last 2 days, and today is the final day of this extreme heat wave. It's supposed to cloud up later on today and possibly rain tonight, and I'm actually ready for that. It has been brutal. As soon as I finish watering these plants, we will be harvesting greenhouse tomatoes. We pick them every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Today is Wednesday, and they have been coming on strong. The harvest has been relentless. So today I was fertilizing the plants, and I've already given them a good dose of fertilizer, a good soaking, and now I'm just rinsing off all the fertilizer residue on the leaves real quick here, because as intense as the sun is right now, it can burn these leaves. We don't want that. Some of you probably have noticed those dead plants in the background there. Those are leftovers from transplant day, from our very first transplanting. That was like 3 weeks ago. So the crops are growing very well. And I always hang on to these though, just in case we have some loss out in the field. We had very little. I did have to replant just a handful of eggplant and peppers. Everything else looks great, so it was time to let those die. I know many of you are sad about that, but when you're growing on a large scale and you're growing thousands and thousands of plants, you always overplant a little bit. And that way, if you do have some loss, you can replant those. But most of the time, we don't need every plant. Our raised beds are full. There's nowhere to go with these plants. And you can't sell them because they're in pro trays. You can't tear off little packets and sell them. And you know, they start looking really rough after a couple weeks. I just keep them alive for about 2 weeks after planting, and then we let them die. We'll clean them out and throw them out. So yes, there is a little bit of loss there, but that's a small price to pay to make sure that you have every plant growing out in your fields on raised beds with black biodegradable mulch. Just look at all those tomatoes we have to harvest today. There is a pile of them. Sometimes it just blows my mind, even to this day, after doing this for 25 years, that they can turn this fast. We just picked them 2 days ago, like I said, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But they just keep coming and just don't quit. This heat is not good on tomatoes. When it gets above 86 degrees, lycopene, which is the red pigment, the red color of tomatoes, stops being produced, at least as well. And you'll start getting lighter orange tomatoes and maybe not fully even ripening around the tomato. I haven't noticed it yet, and thankfully this heat wave is going to diminish after today. So hopefully the tomatoes will be okay and look normal in future harvest here in the next couple days. I used to put a white shade cloth on my tomato greenhouses. You don't want to use black on tomatoes. You want to use white. We had a 35% shade cloth, white shade cloth, and it was just a big hassle to put it up. It was only up during the month of June and July, and then we had to take it right back down. And I know you can spray white paint. It's like a greenhouse paint to help shade the heat of the sun from your tomatoes, because they can get sun scald as well. But we quit doing it almost 12 or 15 years ago and really haven't had any issues. Yes, we'll get a little bit of a sun scald and less uneven ripening during July, but I've never really seen it in June too much. They still look really good, and we will be finishing up our harvest in here in just 6 weeks. It's hard to believe it is coming that quickly. So in 6 weeks, we hope to be picking out in our fields, and we'll no longer need our greenhouse tomatoes. We only grow these for the last half of May, June and July, and early August farmers markets, and then they're not needed any longer after that. This is the color we like to pick them. You can see a little bit of that uneven ripening now. See how they look just a little bit yellowish orange with streaks of darker orange? That will go away on these. That's not too bad. I wouldn't want to see it any worse than that. All right, so right now the crew is picking grape tomatoes. As soon as they finish that up, they will be up here to harvest all of these tomatoes out of 3 greenhouses, and I'll bring you along and show you some of the harvesting process. I realize I haven't filmed any of the greenhouse tomato harvest recently, but I've had several requests in the comments of past videos wanting to see some more tomato harvesting. So I will try my best to do that for you today. Just finished up packing our mobile produce trailer. There's all our tomatoes. Still selling Georgia sweet corn. Found out yesterday from our wholesale supplier, we won't have Ohio or Indiana corn until probably July 4th weekend. Maybe even after the 4th. So everything's a little bit late this year. Normally we already have Ohio sweet corn. So we're gonna have to sell this Georgia sweet corn for another 10 days, it looks like. And we're probably only 20 days away from harvesting our own. Green tomatoes, grape tomatoes, soft and overripe peaches are good peaches. Freestone, cling-free peaches. They are delicious. See this watermelon, cantaloupe, onions, baby red potatoes, green beans. I forgot to order peppers, so we're almost out. Our own homegrown zucchini. The last of the yellow squash that I purchased. We will start putting ours on here tomorrow. And southern cucumbers. She's got her scales, credit card machine, and money box. She's ready to go. I'm not sure if I mentioned the strawberries. I was able to get 3 flats yesterday. This might be the end. All right, we are just getting started on tomato harvest. Here's our first 4 lugs of the day. They look really nice. Grape tomatoes are suffering just a little bit in this heat. The pick is down a little bit, but not too bad. Actually, for the first time in history, I'm not short on grape tomatoes. I actually have a pretty good pile of them in our tomato cooler for this Saturday's sales. So it's really not that big of a deal that the harvest is down a little bit. All right, let's go check out some of the tomato picking action. This is what a row looks like after we finish harvesting. Not a lot of red out there. You can still see quite a few that are turning, but we don't pick them quite that light. Glad to see a lot of green ones still hanging on the plants. That means we're going to continue to have a great harvest as we move forward through the end of June. Elijah's down here finishing up his row, and as you can see, he is hot. It is brutal in here today. It's not even 8 o'clock yet, but it is already in the 80s in here. Sometimes in this extreme heat, you start getting some of these concentric rings. I think that's what it's called. Almost like a russeting. Some of it has to do with the humidity and the heat and the irrigation. As long as it's not any worse than that, I'm not too concerned. You can see most of them are really clean looking. There's definitely some russeting in this house. It always tends to happen in here because the humidity control is not quite as good in this greenhouse. There's a whopper. And some of these older plants, the size is definitely going down. You can see I got a lot of tennis ball sized tomatoes. But in our newer rows, they're still huge. You know, we're just starting to pick our little house now, and there's some that are almost softball size in there. We'll go down there next. The one good thing about this time of year is the little stem, the calyx. A lot of times they'll come off the tomato as you pick them if you twist them the proper way as you're pulling them off the tomato truss. And that saves a lot of time. Early in the season, they stick on the tomato really hard, really tight, and they're hard to get off. See how that one stayed on? But they pop off easy. Yeah. You can see the size. It's getting small there. That's about a baseball sized tomato there, and some tennis ball size there. You can see all the tomatoes down through there. There's a gob of them. It's not very often that you get all three on the cluster to be ready at the exact same time. Whoa, that one dropped right off. But with this extreme heat, it's bringing some entire clusters on all together. See, normally it's like this. We'll pick these two, and this one needs till Friday to finish ripening. Look at this one, it has a nose on it. Get some crazy shaped tomatoes out here. When we get 2 full tubs, we roll them into the barn, offload them, and get 2 more empty tubs, and pick back up where we left off. There's probably 3 or 4 more tubs down this aisleway. So this row 5 over here was planted probably 2 weeks after this one, and it still has given us some nice big whopper beefsteak tomatoes. Look at those bad boys. They're gorgeous. They got a lot of weight to them. But I would say even this row is past peak production, but at least they're still big. Woo, look at that one. That's almost as big as a softball, at least in diameter. Just like the heat this week, the tomato harvest has been relentless for probably a month, right, Natalie? They just won't quit. And I contribute that to several factors. 1, fruit pruning all of my tomato clusters down to 3. I know I've beaten this like a dead horse. I talk about it every time I'm in the tomato greenhouse, but it makes all the difference in the world for the longevity of a consistent harvest of your plants. If you do not fruit prune your tomatoes, yes, you might get more tomatoes in the short term, but in the long term, you're gonna get more tomatoes by fruit pruning them down to 3. You'll get bigger tomatoes, and it won't overwhelm and overload the plant, and it'll continually give you a great harvest. Another reason is that I have kept these plants insect free. I use biologicals, organically labeled sprays, pesticides. They're not even really pesticides. They're like a spore that you spray on the leaves, and if there's thrips or aphids or whiteflies present, it will take care of that issue. We have had no insect issues whatsoever, so the quality of the fruit is just exceptional this year. And the third reason, there's probably many reasons. The third reason is because I met with Nathan from Crop King, their horticultural specialist, growing specialist for hydroponic tomatoes, and he gave me some pointers on plant maintenance and tweaking my my recipe a little bit, and my humidity control, heating and cooling controls on my computer. So all those things add up to give you a beautiful crop. We like to place our tomatoes stem up in the picking tub and in our box and on our displays at our farmers markets. If we continually place them like this in the tub, in the box we're going to pack them in, and on a display at the farmers market tables, it starts giving some blemishes around the shoulder, the top of the tomato, and it'll start looking cosmetically challenged, and then we have to reduce the price because no one will want to buy them. So actually, it doesn't matter which way you put them at the farmer's market. If they look like this, customers will pick them up and look at the bottom to make sure it looks good. If we put them like this, the customer wants to pick it up and look at the top to make sure it's good. So you really can't win either way. But we have found for us, the tomatoes look better and last longer when we always have the stem facing up. I believe they've already picked greenhouse number 1, our tall house. They're getting really small. Now everybody is in little house, planting number 4 and 5. And I can see planting number 5 is starting to turn. These two plantings came on far too early for me. That's kind of why we're piled up, buried in tomatoes in our tomato cooler. And in combination with lagging sales, it's been hard for us to keep on top of moving all of our tomatoes as fast as we normally do. Even with the slower sales, if these greenhouses would not have come on as early as they did and followed our normal schedule like they usually do in the past years, we would be sitting pretty on our tomato supply. So this one should just be starting maybe right now here at the end of June. But you know, we've been picking it for 10 days, probably 2 weeks. This one should not be starting until sweet corn season, mid-July. So I just cannot believe how the weather conditions can affect, the amount of sunlight and the heat can affect your ripening or maturity of your tomato crop. We got some whoppers in here. I don't have a tub with me, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick some of these. This isn't normally how we pick them, by just squatting down on the floor with an empty tub. We usually have a wheelbarrow, but they are all taken right now, and I wanted to jump in and help finish this up. In these newer plantings, the stems are definitely harder to get off. Sometimes they don't want to pop off and stay on the plant. You gotta be careful. If you're really pulling on that stem and your thumbnail slips, it'll gouge the tomato, and then you gotta turn it into a second-hand tomato, a cosmetically challenged. I don't know if that's a split or something scraped it. I think it got scraped, probably by one of these clips or something while it was growing. Man, that's a big one.
You got some beauties over here.
Yeah. This cluster is a little bit smaller here. So this is pretty much our first harvest over here in these two rows. You can see there's a lot of green tomatoes and just a few that are turning, but they are big. That's what we need. Since a lot of the other greenhouses are now giving us a lot of small tomatoes, I'm glad to have this newer planting to give us some big ones. Everybody's just about finished up harvesting tomatoes. Here comes Natalie with a couple tubs, and the other 4 are still in there finishing up their final tubs. And then we're gonna get to packing all these tomatoes. Check it out. Another amazing harvest. My goodness. We're definitely not gonna have enough folded boxes. I'm gonna have to fold this pile to hold them all. Looks like Kipper's gonna join me in box folding. Bet she won't stay here long as soon as I start folding. Oh man, this heat and humidity. Wow. So like I mentioned earlier, today is Wednesday, June 25, and I thought today was going to be cloudy and a potential threat of rain this afternoon or this evening. It's only like a 30% chance. So with that comes more humidity, and boy, can I feel it. Everybody's been complaining about how hot and humid it is. There's no breeze. And it's probably only 85 degrees out there, if that. It's just the humidity is like almost 100%. So it is brutal. I'm sure many of you watching this right now live in the Midwest or are in this heat wave that is moving through a good portion of the country. Midwest, even the South, Mid-South, and into New England. It's everywhere. I'll be glad when this is over. Even the boxes feel like damp and chewy. Not as crisp and snappy as normal. But I think today is supposed to be the last of the worst of it. We'll be back down in the 80s, high 80s, and probably humid, but it's going to continue dipping back down to normal mid 80s here by the end of the week, I think. All right, we got our picking done. Everybody's in here taking a break from the greenhouses because it's so miserable today. We're gonna get these all packed up and then we'll head back in there and at least do some sucker pruning and fruit pruning. I think we're gonna pass on the debranching and the lowering today because it's just too brutal. All right, guys, what is your guess on how many boxes we picked today? Give me a number.
83. 75.
83, 75.
82.
82. 49. And I know Allie will have no clue how many boxes we're gonna get. So just take a stab at it. Go high.
90.
Hey, we might have 90 boxes out here today. All right, I'm gonna set you up on time lapse and we're gonna get this job done. Just finished up packing. Let's see what we got. There they are, 12 high, 8 stacks on a skid. That's 96, 97, 97 cases of tomatoes. Folks, we are getting piled up again. There's not near as many on these two skids, only like 55, 60. Actually, all of these. And here's the one we're selling from right now. So this weekend, in 2 days, I'll be pulling that one out, that one out, that one, and probably we'll be able to get rid of most of this one. So after this weekend, we'll be down to that pallet, and the one we just picked today. So even though it looks like a ton of tomatoes, probably close to 400 boxes if I had to guess, we're selling more of them at the markets, and you know, fortunately, last week's harvest was a lot less. I'm glad we weren't getting 100 boxes a day last week, or I'd be in trouble again. But we'll be all right. Things have been going much better. All right, now the tomatoes are finished up, Elijah and I are out here in the zucchini patch and the yellow squash patch. They're looking really nice. And today is going to be day one of zucchini harvest. There's not going to be a whole lot. I will do a dedicated video all about zucchini and yellow squash and cucumber harvest coming very soon. We're going to go ahead and walk down through here and start picking zucchini. We'll probably only get a couple dozen, but you got to start somewhere. There's going to be a lot of zucchini coming out of this patch in the next month or so, and then we'll move on to zucchini planting number 2, and then zucchini planting number 3, and that will take us all the way to frost. So here's the size we want to pick, the diameter anyway. They always start off a little bit on the short side. I would prefer it to be about another 3 or 4 inches, but they're not going to elongate much more. Once they get this diameter, you just got to pick them. And if we see a little ugly one, we'll just twist those off and throw them aside. And that'll promote growth of all the new ones that are coming that we want that look like that. That nice, shiny, glossy, sleek look. And we just set them in there gently, and we'll kind of stack them in these tubs. And as we get a full tub, we'll set them aside and then pick them up with the GMC on the way back down through the field. we just twist them off. We used to always cut them, but it just takes so much more time. You can use both hands and pick 2 at a time when you just twist them. Just grab them, twist them. Now later in the season, the stems will get thicker and shorter, and there you can often snap off the end of the zucchini. So I train everybody to kind of hold the stem as they're twisting them, if that happens. But early in the season, when they're just starting, the stems seem to be a little skinnier and they don't pop off the zucchini and expose the zucchini flesh. And then we pop off the little flower at the end, stack them in the tub. Twist, pop off the flower. Some of these are just a little on the small side, but if we didn't pick that today, with this heat, it would be 2 to 3 times bigger than that by Friday. So you gotta pick them every other day. I normally don't quite pick them that small, and like I said, they're usually a lot longer, probably almost twice that long. It's just the first couple pickings would be a little bit stubby. Here's a pretty nice one. A little more normal looking. All right, we're gonna go down these 3 zucchini rows and then make a quick pass back on the yellow squash. And then we'll head back up to the greenhouses to help the rest of the crew working on suckering and fruit pruning. All right, we just came up from the field with our zucchini and yellow squash. Let me show you what we got. As you can see, the yellow squash is just starting. It should be a lot better on Friday. Same with the zucchini. I didn't think we'd get 3 tubs. I was expecting only to get 2, but it looks pretty nice. Wish it was a little bit longer, but that will come with time. A typical harvest on zucchini for us with the 3 rows that we have usually yields about 9 to 14 tubs every other day, something like that. And it just varies depending on the weather and the stage of growth that the plant is in. But since this is going to be the very beginning of the harvest season, the numbers will be higher. And then as the plant kind of runs its course and starts fizzling out and getting worn out, you know, the harvest will go down a little bit, and that's when we'll start picking on patch number 2. All right, I'm gonna get these rolled into the cooler and go inside and take a little break, get out of the heat, and maybe change my shirt. Maybe I'll go shirtless the rest of the day. It is hot, but I already let the employees go for the day. They finished up some of the sucker pruning in the long greenhouse, greenhouse number 2, and we're gonna pick it back up tomorrow at 7:30. While it's still cool, we'll finish some of the greenhouse work, and then we'll all head down to the field to pick another new crop that is ready. I can't believe it is time to pick pickles already. The cucumbers aren't even close. They're about finger size, so we got 10 days yet on cucumbers, but the pickles are already ready to harvest. So tomorrow morning, the crew and I will be heading out to the field for our first pickle harvest of 2025. That's a nice looking crop of sweet corn right there, folks. It's all fully tasseled. There's ears on every stalk. It's being pollinated right now. When you see silks and ears on the stalks, you are less than 3 weeks away from harvest. So today is June 25th. So by mid-July, which is a little bit late for us, we're usually around July 7 to 12. I'm guessing it's gonna be about July 15 or 16. We should be in full swing harvesting this patch of sweet corn right here. Man, I wish there was smell-o-vision. Oh. I love the way fresh sweet corn smells. So good. So, I don't know if you can see that. When I shake that, a pollen's coming off. Yeah, some of the little parts of the tassel are falling off, but there's a cloud of pollen. Can you see any of that? Look at all the pollen on the leaves of the corn. This is how sweet corn is pollinated. So for those of you who have no idea how sweet corn is raised or how an ear is formed, I'm gonna quickly explain it to you. So the tassel has the pollen, and the wind will make the pollen fall and land on a silk. See these big, glorious silks coming out of this little ear of corn right here? Each silk leads to a kernel of corn, and that is how it is pollinated. The pollen falls from the tassel, lands on the silks, and it pollinates this ear of corn so it will have kernels inside. Boy, I can't get over how good this corn looks. This is the corn that was planted at 30,000 seeds per acre by mistake. I'm pretty sure it's going to be just fine because of skips like this. See, there's 2 stalks of corn that weren't planted right there, or 2 seeds that weren't planted. So we have gaps every now and then. See, here's another one. This is more like what it's supposed to look like, you know, 9 or 10 inches between stalks instead of 5 like those 2. See, skip, skip, 2 skips right here. So I think with all these skips out here, this corn's gonna be just fine as far as having normal ear size in diameter and length. I'm still a little worried about some of it maybe being a little bit on the small side, but we've had plenty of moisture and now we've had plenty of heat. But it would be nice to get another rain or 2 on it here in the next week or 2 to finish it off. Turn off my alarm here for the irrigation. Yeah, overall, I am really happy with what I'm seeing out here. This corn looks really healthy and I think it's gonna do just fine. If you're wondering about the height of the sweet corn, wondering why it's so short, that's all a taller Bolt gets. This variety is called Bolt. It's an early season variety, like 67 to 69 days. But it is a super sweet, an augmented super sweet, an improved super sweet is what they're called. So later on, the corn might be mostly 6 feet tall throughout the rest of the season, but this early corn only gets like 5 feet tall. And I'm getting really excited about beginning sweet corn harvest because that's when things really kick off for us at Wishwell Farms. That's when sales will dramatically increase at all of our farmers markets and roadside stands. So really looking forward to getting harvest started here in about 3 weeks. Folks, this is where we're gonna wrap this one up today. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.